topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Welcome to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV, where we bring you educational information from top local experts in the fields of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. Now sit back and listen to experts in family law, association law, hearing loss, business brokers, home care, along with many other topics. Now here are your hosts, Steve-O and Sophia.
Hey, good afternoon. Southern California, where the weather is always beautiful there. Welcome to another Ask the Expert show. Hey, we get so many emails from you saying, I hope you read my email. I got to tell you, first of all, I read every single email, and we literally get hundreds of emails a month. And one of the things you've been asking for is a personal injury attorney. And first of all, there are hundreds of personal injury attorneys in Los Angeles, but we had to make sure that we found one of the top personal injury law firms in Southern California. And this is going to be his first show. Let's welcome attorney Gerald Marcus. Good afternoon, Jerry.
Thank you for welcoming me. And how are you? It's good to be here and good to have my first show with you.
Jerry, it seems like we've been talking for years. Your show is finally here. I have got so many questions for you. But first, before we get started, tell people about your firm and your background.
Sure. So my name is Jerry Marcus, and I've been a practicing plaintiff personal injury trial lawyer and attorney for 38 years. And by way of background, I actually got into this profession or business all the way back in 1980, working for a big PI firm, doing their investigations out on the streets, meeting with clients, developing cases. And I kind of fell in love with the law and with helping people that needed help against the insurance industry. And as a result, I went to law school while working for them at night. I went to law school at night for 4.5 years and worked for them for about 6 years, and then became a lawyer, took the bar in 1987 and opened up my practice in 87. And I've been doing it ever since. I've represented approximately 20,000 innocent injured victims.
Wow.
Against the insurance industry for every imaginable type of personal injury case that you could ever think of, for every imaginable injury, from the most insignificant theoretically to the most catastrophic or worse. We've recovered in excess of $450 million over that period of time. And I'm still in the trenches. I'm still fighting for the underdog against big corporate America, a la the insurance industry, and I love what I do.
Well, first of all, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, you look so young, Jerry. So to be able to be practicing that long, you really look good, I must say.
Well preserved.
Well preserved. Okay. So we have had so many people just thank us for bringing the show, but one of the notes I wanted to actually read on the show, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it was basically, he was one of the people who wrote us several months ago that we should have a personal injury show. And one of the things was, he says, I really trust your experts. I've actually used several others. A friend of mine was in an automobile accident, and I really needed an attorney for them. I'm glad you finally have an attorney. I hope I'm not ever in another auto accident, but thank you for bringing on a personal injury attorney. Hey, Jerry, there's a lot of different areas that come under the heading personal injury. Tell me
Correct.
the different areas that you handle.
Sure. So we all think of personal injury attorneys as attorneys who can handle basically any type of a case if it involves an injury that was caused by somebody else's negligence, whether that's an individual or a business or a product, a bad drug against the pharmaceutical industry, whatever it might be. Well, that's true, that general category, it really breaks down into subspecialties, so to speak, or categories. So we all know about the basic kind of automobile accidents, but within an auto accident, there can be 10 different types, whether it's multiple autos or trucks involved or buses involved, motorcycles, bicycles, pedestrians, and there's a multitude of fact situations. So, but the first big area really is something related to a motor vehicle accident or someone hit by a car, bus, truck, whatever it might be. And I do that we've done thousands and thousands of those. Some firms only do automobile accidents and nothing else.
Wow.
Another, yeah, and they limit themselves, and that's okay. They know their limitations. They feel comfortable with that. The other big area is called premises liability, the legal terminology or reference, which we do a lot of that as well. And premises liability falls into the factual pattern of somebody who slips and falls or trips and falls on a dangerous condition. And that could be anything from a dangerous sidewalk that's not level, not even, or it could be inside of a supermarket or a department store. They could slip and fall on something that's spilled there and not tended to, and the storekeepers know about it but didn't do anything to inspect it or clean it up. And typically when people slip and fall, they go down pretty fast and pretty hard, and they suffer pretty serious injuries. It's a whole other animal that we could talk about if we have time later, but a lot of attorneys don't like those. We tend to get a lot of premises liability cases that are referred to us by other attorneys who just pass, and they know that we can do that, and we do a lot of that. Within premises liability, in addition to slip and falls, are trip and falls. And, you know, they all kind of have this weird negative rap, you know, someone slipping and falling. But if it happens to you or a loved one, you'll see it's not funny. And trip and falls can be, you know, bad staircases, no hand railings, not level flooring, something that's obstructing someone's path in a supermarket or a big box store, and they're looking up at the shelves and there's a box filled with goods and they trip over it, and sometimes they suffer really serious injuries. So slip and fall, trip and fall, there's a multitude of other premises liability cases involving dangerous conditions, which are all personal injury cases. In addition to those big categories are construction accidents or construction defects, people who get hurt on the job. That's a workers' compensation case. We don't really do that. I've done that. But there can also be a concurring personal injury case if somebody other than the employer was negligent, caused a dangerous condition that resulted in the employer, the worker's injuries. And in construction cases, it could be very, very serious, including death. There's explosion cases. There's big category, dog bite, dog attack cases. I'm a dog lover. I have 3 dogs. Some of the most horrible injuries that I've handled, that I've represented people for, involve what we call degloving or partial amputation, where a dog bites off a child's finger or hand, or they get a bite in the face or in the back of the leg. And, it hurts. It's very, very painful. And there's a whole area of the law within personal injury involving dog bite or animal bite cases. And typically in California, the owner of the dog would be strictly liable. And all that means is you don't have to prove that they were negligent. If they own a dog or an animal and it bites and harms someone in any way, shape, or form, then they're liable. They're theoretically, legally responsible. And we can get into this later, but typically we're dealing with insurance companies. So that would be a homeowner's insurance claim that we would be making. And it goes on and on. There can be class action suits, pharmaceutical cases, dangerous drugs, medical malpractice cases are an animal in and of themselves, which are also personal injury cases. Somebody harmed a patient, but it's professional negligence, and the standards of care are much higher. A complete specialty. We do that as well, not as often. I typically refer that out to those attorneys that really limit their practice to just medical malpractice, but that too would be considered a personal injury case. So there's a multitude of subcategories under the umbrella category of personal injury.
Well, we just got your first text in. A great question. First of all, thank you for bringing this show to our attention. I've been wondering why you never had a personal injury show. I have a question for your expert. Is he going to be handling, and I can't read how he wrote, I guess it was COVID. I guess that's what he's trying to say. Are you going to be handling claims from COVID?
Let me see if I understand the question. So I think, I don't know if they're
Looks
asking.
like he looks like he had damages, health damages due to COVID. And
Okay.
he wants to know if you can sue the pharmaceutical company.
Okay. So that is an area of the law that I don't personally handle, my firm. However, I've heard about some cases that are turning into class action lawsuits, and the person who's texting in and watching and listening to the show is welcome to email or text me or call me, and I can steer them in the right direction. That falls under the category of a pharmaceutical product liability case if they were given a bad drug or an ineffective drug, or if they went to the doctor or the hospital, and if there was a failure to diagnose COVID and they got really sick and worse off than they would have been had they been treated properly and diagnosed the right way. Sometimes it's just a misdiagnosis. All of those are under that category of quasi medical malpractice or pharmaceutical product liability cases. They are complex. They're a specialty in and of themselves, and there are attorneys that are handling those.
So tell everybody why it's important. And I'm going to just throw this in. My brother who lives in Texas was in an auto accident, and he considers himself this great negotiator, Jerry. So it was like, you know what? I can handle this myself. I'm going to save the money. And I got to tell you, after almost 6 months, he told me he settled, and I cannot believe he admitted, he said, I know I left so much money on the table because I really didn't know what I was doing. It is so important, especially if you're in an auto accident, that you should get an attorney like Jerry to handle the case for you and not think that you're saving some money. Tell people why it's important that they have an attorney, Jerry.
Sure, absolutely. That is a great topic and a great kind of outlook on what happened to your brother. I'm sorry that happened, but I get calls all the time, whether it's family, friends, referrals, or people who find me wherever. And out of the gates, the questions really, there's a bunch of them, but one of them is, do I really need an attorney? How much is the fee? Are you going to get me that much more? Can't I do it on my own? And, you know, I don't try to convince anybody of anything other than what I know to be the truth. after the sum of 45 years of doing this. And I will tell you, number one, you are absolutely better off being represented by a competent, experienced personal injury attorney, regardless of what the facts, the liability, and your injuries are. The reasons why primarily are, that's not what you do. You got hurt, whether it's a car accident, a slip and fall, a dog bite, whether you broke a bone, need surgery, or just have back and neck pain and need some therapy. You have no conception, the average person, of the value, the realistic value of your claim, what you're legally entitled to. If there's a dispute in liability, they don't accept liability. There's a sideswiper, who ran the red light, or is the premises owner responsible for this dangerous condition, which they almost always deny and dispute. Without representation, you're like a fish out of water, A. B, the insurance industry as a whole, 100% of the time, not 99%, so you can quote me on that, it's all documented, 100% of the time will lead you down that primrose path and lead you to believe that they'll be fair and they'll do the right thing. And that if you cooperate and you don't need an attorney and you don't retain an attorney and you give them statements, signed authorizations, give them access to everything, that they'll get back to you in a month or 2 or 3 and they'll do the right thing. And most people believe that. You know, they believe they don't want an attorney. They think they have to sue. You're not automatically suing. You have 2 years from the date of an accident to file a lawsuit. 90% gets settled without a lawsuit. They don't realize that after 2 or 3 months, the insurance adjuster, or in a lot of cases, self-insured entities who have risk management people, will call that person unrepresented and say, all right, we're ready to settle. However, we're disputing this, that, plus we backgrounded you and you have pre-existing conditions. We're not going to pay for that. We think the treatment was too long or too high. So even though you submitted $10,000 in medical expenses and you're claiming all these injuries, we're going to offer you $2,500. Now, it happens all the time, routinely. They almost never do the right thing. I would say never, which causes that person who called me and or your brother 3 months later or 6 months later, if they don't sign the release, at which point the adjuster puts a feather in their cap, they got rid of the claim for cheap. They saved money for the company and made money for their investors, etc. By the way, the insurance industry and insurance company does not owe you a fiduciary duty. Your own insurance company does, but not the other parties. So how and why would you trust them? But once they have that release, it's all over and you have no recourse. If you don't sign a release, and I do get these calls all the time, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, that same person will call me and say, Jerry, you were right. Here's what happened. And they lay it out. And I can write the script. And now they're denying liability. They're offering me $0. What do I do? Or they're offering me $5,000, but the doctor says I need an epidural injection or whatever. Can you help me? And I always try to help people, right? So I go, okay, let's undo the damage. Because usually, I'm sorry I'm talking so much, but usually...
You're doing fine.
Okay, when you're on your own and when you're not represented and you don't know really what they're entitled to and what they're not entitled to, and you cooperate, why not? They'll take your statement, a written or recorded statement, and you're kind of boxed in. And psychologically, early on, most people don't malinger. They don't complain. They don't know the extent of their injury. And there's scripted questions by the adjuster when they record the interview, the statement. And those questions include, you're not hurt that badly, are you? Thankfully, you're not. You didn't go to the hospital, did you? No.
Right.
And you waited 2 weeks to see any doctor, correct? And then you only went to the doctor 8 times over 6 months, right? Okay. Well, unbeknownst to that person, 2 weeks later, they develop some radiating pain or something that develops later. There's a late onset. They go to the doctor. They get an MRI scan. They're told something is more serious. They need something more serious in the way of treatment. yet they're boxed in because that statement is used against them by that insurance adjuster and company who told them, you can trust me. They're not looking out for your best interest. So you absolutely should always, at a minimum, call an attorney who knows what they're doing, lay it out. You want to talk to the attorney, not support staff, not case managers. You want to really, someone who's in the trenches, who cares, and you want them to be straightforward with you and say, you have a bad case, a good case, a tough case. You potentially have a big case, but you make up your decision. It's really all about what the injury is and what the treatment might be. But again, if you're unrepresented, you're a fish out of water. That's what the insurance industry does 24/7. They're trained to do that. So why would you realistically
They're
think?
very good at what they do, aren't they, Jerry?
Yeah, they're good at what they do, but when you've done it as long as I have, you know their playbook.
Yes, right.
So when you know the playbook, you diffuse that defense bomb and you take it away from them early. And in many instances, it's by reputation, experience, being known in the industry, and knowing how to represent the client the right way, honestly, with integrity, being honorable and aggressive. So the key is being aggressive for your client. Nothing more, nothing less than what you're legally, reasonably entitled to. And one last comment. By and large, my experience is the majority, and again, insurance adjusters are people too, right? They have a job, but so we always say sometimes they drank the Kool-Aid. And why do we say that? Well, everyone has a different opinion, and not everyone believes in personal injury cases or the bad raps personal injury attorneys have gotten over the years with all the billboards and the commercials. And, there must be a need for that. But, so you have to, some of these adjusters have decided to deny, dispute, or minimize a claim before they've even talked to you, before they've even seen the medicals, just by the initial intake. They're not being fair. They're not being objective. So you don't want to be unrepresented. You want to be represented by a competent, experienced personal injury attorney. At a minimum, talk to one or two or three, get some opinions, and then make an intelligently informed decision as to whether it's right for you to be represented.
Jerry, we've got about a minute left. I want people to understand, because we take for granted that everybody understands personal injury, but a personal injury attorney, the way you charge on a contingency basis. So
Correct.
there's no money up front.
Correct.
So there's no excuse for not hiring an attorney like Jerry.
Right. And I'll try to be short on this because I know we have a time limitation. The bottom line is you have any consumer, any victim with the most difficult and disputed of cases has absolutely no risk whatsoever in being represented by the best attorney in the country. We level the playing field, and we could put people who are homeless, poverty stricken, they couldn't afford an attorney, or people who are fortunate enough to be able to pay but not want to pay, and put them on the same level playing field as corporate insurance America, basically, with the best possible legal representation. We only get paid if we get you paid. We only get paid when and if we settle it, get an award, or get a verdict. And if we don't, if we strike out, which rarely happens, we have a 98% plus success rate, then we don't get paid. Plus, we advance all the costs, and there are costs associated with prosecuting.
Exactly.
It's not just the fee. And costs could be in the hundreds of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Tell people how they can reach you.
Sure. You can reach me either at 818-784-8544. I do have a toll-free number, 800-905-9777. Or you could visit my website. It's www.geraldmarcuslaw.com. And you can click right through to call or to chat. But in any method that you use to contact me, you can bet your bottom dollar we'll respond immediately. We'll answer your questions. We're happy to help, and that's what we do.
Well, those of you who are writing in now, why is this show so short? That's all of our shows are all the same, about 23, 25 minutes. But Jerry will be back again with us next month. Someone just wrote, "What a good score you got with this expert." If you missed any of the show, you want to go back, you can go to iHeart or Spotify under Ask the Experts Personal Injury Law. Actually, it's under auto accidents today. Jerry, great job. First show. I'm so glad we have you as our expert. We'll see you next month.
All right. Thanks. Nice being here.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
That's attorney Gerald Marcus. He'll be back again with us next month. And that will do it for us today. We'll be back with you soon.
Thanks for tuning in today to the Ask the Expert show on W4CY Radio and Talk4 TV. Tune in next week and every week to hear more from our experts on personal injury, insurance, air condition repairs, estate planning, Medicare, and many other topics in the areas of legal, health, financial, and home improvement. See you next week.